Good morning. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the OBX Wave Report, the March 25 edition of the OBX Wave Report, where we talk all things waves, weather, climate, today, clean energy, and beach lifestyle. We've had some great surf sessions this week, a total of 4 so far just for this week alone, 2 in one day. Amazing. Um, and total this year so far 25. I'm trying to get to 150. Getting there. So, and we're getting good. We're improving. We've been riding both the Lost Rocket Redux and the aforementioned Yellow Banana, my old Eberly here, and starting to feel the skills come back. It's good. Did not get up this morning. Took a bit of a break, took a bit of a rest. It's another gorgeous day outside. And with all these things I've been saying, you might be wondering, why am I on the dictionary definition of boondoggle? Um, and the reason why I'm getting into boondoggle is because of a discussion I've had with a friend and some thoughts that I've had on issues regarding how we rapidly get out of the climate crisis. And what has happened in my experience is, oftentimes when there's a drive for like a new thing that's actually working, there tends to be a reaction to it. And some of the reaction is understandable because a new thing is uncertain. It's something that people really don't fully understand generally. Um, and then the other thing is that sometimes there are those who, for whatever reason, don't want to let go of the old thing and tend to throw up excuses, distractions, red herrings um, for reasons not to do the new thing. In this case, the new thing is like really needed. We really, really need clean energy and we really, really need it to be able to deploy rapidly. And those two facts coordinate. So it is worth noting, though, that just like there are climate change deniers, those who will tend to confuse people for whatever reason about climate change, saying things like it comes from volcanoes, which is not true, and you can just go to NASA and figure that out. It's a basic scientific fact that the primary driver of climate change and global heating is fossil fuel burning. And then, but just like you have confusionists on the issue of climate change, you also have confusionists on the issue of clean energy. And clean energy confusion is actually pretty incendiary right now. There's a lot of back and forth, a lot of attacks going on, particularly against electric vehicles. And one of the attacks on electric vehicles involves promoting a slow go technology in the form of hydrogen to try and compete or try and create the appearance of competition with electric vehicles when the fact of the matter is right now there is no competition between hydrogen and electric vehicles and and hydrogen has over decades and decades and decades absorbed vast funds of research and development and produced very little result. This is not to say that hydrogen can't be a part of a clean energy economy. Um, and my focus here is on transportation. In my opinion, hydrogen technology right now is much more mature and much more able to do things like help replace carbon emissions in manufacturing, for example, or shipping, for example, or aviation, for example. Um, Particularly for like things like steel manufacturing. And if we mass deploy clean energy in the form of solar and wind, we can produce and the electrolyzers, we can mass produce green hydrogen and then possibly in the future have, a really nice supplement in the form of green hydrogen to all of these activities. But the time frame for that, the curve for that is more long. It takes a long time to get down that curve. And many of the technologies that involve that are needed for that to happen are still unproven. Whereas with electric vehicles and battery technology, the technology is mature and has this very rapid learning curve. And I'm going to get into that in a little bit. But before I get into that, I want to talk about a word called boondoggle. We've had a CEO, Toyota CEO, say that people who support electric vehicles as a solution to climate change are extremists. And this is um, a, I would say, harmful assertion to say the least. Electric vehicles have proven themselves as a technology. And his use of this smearing of those who support electric vehicles, his use of this terminology, is backed up by what appears to be a maniacal and counterfactual adherence to this notion that somehow Toyota is going to be able to mass deploy hydrogen vehicles and compete with electric vehicles. And to that, I say, good luck. If Toyota actually does build the entire hydrogen infrastructure by itself, because there's really no hydrogen infrastructure out there, and somehow manages to mass produce hydrogen vehicles at cost that use green hydrogen and are zero emitting and have the same performance parameters that electric vehicles have now in emissions and efficiency, then I will be the first to celebrate him. But that's not what I see coming from Toyota right now. I just hear a lot of big talk and very little action. So let's get into it. Um, all right. So I just want to talk about a post by Royce Kermalov. A week ago, Toyota's sales and marketing boss railed against electric vehicle extremism at the launch of the Corolla Cross Hybrid. Today, they've been hit with a class action lawsuit alleging they used defeat devices to tamper with emissions controls. Now, emissions from fossil fuel burning are kind of a big deal. They inject pollutants into the atmosphere, and many of these pollutants are, harmful to people's healths and result in loss of life, which is one of the reasons why they're controlled. And based on this new lawsuit, apparently Toyota is trying to figure out a way around emission control devices and pump more nasty stuff into the air that makes people sick, even as they rail against electric vehicle extremism. Electric vehicles produce no pollutants in use. There's no tailpipe on an electric vehicle. There's no nasty stuff that comes out of that tailpipe. And if you plug that electric vehicle into wind and solar, it has zero emissions in use. So this railing against electric vehicle extremism while trying to get around pollution control devices causes me to really doubt Toyota's sincerity when it comes to hydrogen. Um, and it just looks to me like an excuse for Toyota to double down on fossil fuel-based vehicles and also get around protections that protect people like you and me, the public. All right, I want to read another quote from early October. This from Dan Goucher. The climate wreckers. Okay, so I'm not necessarily calling Toyota a climate wrecker, but they do talk a lot like the fossil fuel industry, which has caused me a lot of concern and consternation. Um, labeling people electric vehicle extremists when all they're really trying to do is help the Earth's climate system and do it rapidly, right? So the climate wreckers at Toyota Australia are sad about electric vehicle extremism. The real extremists are those proposing that we drive petrol cars for another 20 years. And and this is where we get into the hydrogen thing. The hydrogen thing is not as mature of a technology as electric vehicles. We've already done most of the work, and the headway for electric vehicles has already been breached. So doubling down on a less mature technology and an unproven technology that requires multiple breakthroughs to get to EV's level is basically saying, oh, well, we want to produce fossil fuel-based vehicles for another 5, 10, 15, 20 years or more. When the scientists right now are saying that we need to cut emissions in half or more over the next decade to maintain relatively safe climate thresholds. And this is where Toyota's rhetoric doesn't really add up to the reality. So I want to get into this just a little bit more. This is not a really super comprehensive analysis. If you want a really comprehensive analysis, I recommend you check a real expert like Mark Jacobson over on the Twitters. He is a fantastic expert when it comes to clean energy. He doesn't have a thing to sell or an axe to grind. He is just someone that helps economies and states and governments rapidly transition to clean energy. So if I'm looking for someone who provide good advice on a rapid clean energy transition, I'm gonna look at someone with um, those kinds of aspects, right? And full disclosure for me, I don't receive funding from anybody. All right. Um, I'm just a surfer and a YouTuber and a former emerging threats expert who is very concerned about our lives, our coastlines, and our climate. So, and if someone came to me and offered me money when it came to like say for example, I don't know, Elon Musk is like, oh, stop being so mean about, me working with the Saudis on Twitter and, dropped $10,000 or something like that. I'd say go to hell. I'm not going to take bad money, right? That's my pledge to you. And in addition to that, I donate publicly to various charities that help to build a better world. So if I do make any money, it'll be because you guys watch me, you guys listen to me, and there might be some ads, or I might sell some books or something like that. But it'll be all mine independently, right? That's my pledge to you. I already had people, offer to set stuff up for me on the climate blog. It's not going to happen. I won't have any attachments. All right, so let's get into hydrogen versus electric. Where are we? And I don't know. For me, like I'm a numbers person, and what really speaks to me is actual action, actual agency, actual numbers. And so when people talk about hydrogen vehicles, what I'm looking at is the growth curve. And right now, last year actually, over about 56,000 hydrogen fuel cell passenger vehicles were sold worldwide. This is less than in 2021. So the rate of hydrogen fuel cell vehicle sales is shrinking. And we've got a CEO in Toyota saying that that's the future and calling people who support electric vehicles extremist. All right, so let's look at electric vehicles. So now I'm going to give you two statistics, one for the world and one for the United States. So in the United States, total new vehicle sales fell by 8%. So overall, vehicle sales fell by 8, but electric vehicle sales rose by 65%. So regular vehicles, fossil fuel-based vehicles for the most part, are seeing a drop in sales in that total pool. But electric vehicles as part of that pool, jumping forward 65%. Fully 5.8% of new car sales in the US were electric, up from 3.2% in 2021, which is almost a doubling. Total EV sales topped 800,000 for the first time, just in the United States. 12 times the number of electric vehicles sold in the United States as the number of hydrogen vehicles sold in the whole world. And then let's look at the world. All right, so in 2022, global EV sales were 10.5 million new BEVs and PHEVs, so base electric vehicles to wholly electric or plug-in electric hybrids were delivered during 2022. And that was an increase of 55% compared to 2021. So if I'm looking at what's working for clean energy mass deployment, EVs loom large. EVs look great. EVs are moving forward. We're getting the supply lines built. We're getting the supply chains set up where, we have the infrastructure in place. The infrastructure is already there in the form of the grid, and charging stations are simply easy to attach to it. So the cost of building a charging station is considerably less than the cost of building a hydrogen fuel station. So if you just look at base numbers and base money, EVs are winning. So why would a CEO double down on hydrogen that's losing? I mean, unless they have some magical solution, which I doubt, or the more likely answer being they just want to keep producing fossil fuel-based vehicles, which is a cop-out on the back of them cheating, apparently, on their emissions. And that's what I have to say about hydrogen fuel cell vehicles today before we get into the wave report, where we're very concerned about our coastlines, our reefs, our homes, and we are very in tune with the need to act, which is not an extremist thing at all. It's just a responsible thing. And if someone calls responsible people extremists, well, I don't know. Maybe you better look at their morality, what drives them. What internally is moving them, and what level of clarity or confusion do they have in their hearts? Because I'll tell you what, I'm crystal clear. I've got no regrets, guys. And I don't care if I'm popular. It's obvious. But in any case, let's get into the wave report. We've got some interesting, crazy things going on here in the Outer Banks. Main crazy thing is the heat. We've got quite a lot of heat here across the Outer Banks. We had predicted temperatures yesterday in the 70s. It got up to 80 down there at Nag's Head yesterday. It was a gorgeous day, summer-like day. People all over the beach. Waves were small, in the range of 1 foot or less, but nonetheless, just a beautiful day at the beach. And today, probably very similar conditions. Temperatures in the middle 70s. And we got temperatures in the middle 70s, possibly getting higher. The predicted temperatures have been undershooting the actual temperatures. We've got a high pressure system off to the east that's pulling up that Gulf moisture. We've got a storm out over the Mississippi and Ohio River Valley that's like firing up like all these various thunderstorms and storms and such. And we've got strong southwest winds coming in across the Outer Banks. Waves are still in the range of about 1 to 3 feet, so maybe a little bit better conditions as far as waves today than yesterday. Haven't been down to the beach yet to get a direct observation, but looks like the wave heights are larger at least, might be a little bit more choppy. And then as we head on through the day, those winds will probably tend to pick up and we have a chance of a thunderstorm later on. So kind of late spring, summerish conditions here in the Outer Banks. And waves a little bit better. So if you guys do get out there, I hope you enjoy it. Hope you shred it up. All right, so getting down to the National Weather Service radar picture, we do see the front sweeping on through the Appalachians and parts of the Great Lakes states. This front is going to head toward the east. If you're traveling today in the U.S. East, you're probably going to encounter some showers and thunderstorms. Nothing too crazy. You should be fine. Most of the severe weather is heading off to the south, so like south of Atlanta, we got some severe thunderstorms in the Florida Panhandle. So if you're traveling in that direction, then yeah, you might want to watch out for some severe thunderstorms. Here in the Outer Banks, we've got small craft advisories up. No gale warnings. Kind of surprised by that. But yeah, no gale warnings at this point. Toward the north and east, we got gale warnings up near Maine, Massachusetts, those regions. And then for the west coast, we got more storminess moving in, gale warnings and gale watches up, all up and down the west coast. Waves are likely pretty big out there on the west coast. Hope you guys find a good surf spot, shred it up. All right, looking at the geocolor satellite image, beautiful cloud tops, big swirl of white with the storm system. You can see that front off to the west of the Outer Banks, starting to move through. Could be dramatic this afternoon, could be pretty fun. I don't know. I like a thunderstorm. I don't know about you guys, but it's big fun, fun times. As long as it's not too crazy. We don't want like big old EF 3, 4, 5 tornadoes or anything like that. Just, nice little thunder boomer, fun stuff. Yeah, have some ice cream, watch the thunderstorm. That's fun. Fun at the beach, right? Out west, we got that another storm lurking off the U.S. West Coast. Got some mountain snows, some snows in the upper Midwest, and parts of Texas clearing, Louisiana clearing after some stormy weather yesterday. All right, so let's get down to the local observations for the wave report. We're going to hit our locations for today at Jeanette's Pier. Let's move on up to the north using our Google Maps for informational purposes. We've got Jeanette's Pier here at 1 to 2 feet, so a little bit larger than yesterday, apparently. See, now I regret not going out this morning. I just had to recharge. It's been just such a busy week, and I mean, it's good. It's good times. Good to have a rich life. But in any case, yeah, waves at Jeanette's Pier in the range of 1 to 2 foot. We got a primary swell coming in out of the northeast at 6 seconds. That is 2.5 feet. Secondary swell coming in out of the east at 16 seconds, 0.7 feet. Winds out of the southwest, 16 miles per hour. That is fresh offshore flow. Air temperatures in the lower 60s right now. Ocean water temperatures at 50 degrees. That ocean water temperature warming up a little bit. And for the weather forecast today, we've got a chance of a thunderstorm, mostly sunny, and then a chance of a thunderstorm later. High around 76, might get warmer, might get to 80 again. I do want to provide you guys with an observation a little bit to the north here at Avalon Pier, where the waves are 2 to 3 feet. So looks like we've got some better wave conditions at Avalon. Interesting. There's a couple of point breaks at Avalon, one to the south, one to the north. Maybe those guys are going off. Might be something to check out today. So heading on down south to Rodanthe, we also have 1 to 2 foot waves with a primary swell also coming in out of the northeast at 6 seconds. That is a 2 foot primary swell. Secondary swell at 1 foot coming in at 9 seconds out of the east southeast. Winds are much stronger down there at Rodanthe, likely chopping up the waves a little bit. 22 miles per hour. Well, actually, might be helping to generate some hollow conditions now that I think about it. So 22 mile per hour strong offshore winds out of the southwest. So depending on how the swell is lining up, and we've got a northeast swell there, might have some pretty hollow waves out there at Rodanthe. I don't know. Not down there. So this is pure speculation. But in any case, air temperatures right now, 67 degrees Fahrenheit. Ocean water temperatures up a little bit, 52 degrees Fahrenheit. Weather conditions for the day, same as to the north. Chance of a thunderstorm. Later, sunny right now, strong southwest winds, and highs in the mid 70s. Heading further south at Avon, we find the waves are about 1 to 2 foot, so decent little waves down there at Avon. And then at Buxton, comprehensive analysis shows that we've got 2 to 3 foot waves, primary swell coming in out of the southeast at 9 seconds. That's a 1.3 foot swell. Somehow Buxton gets the best lineup. I don't know how it amplifies those swells, but apparently it does. Secondary swell coming in at 15 seconds out of the northeast. That's a 0.8 foot swell. Winds coming out of the southwest at 20 miles per hour. That's a strong offshore flow. Air temperature in the range of 69 degrees Fahrenheit. Ocean water temperature 63, warming up down there at Buxton, getting a little bit warm, although 63-degree water is not really super warm, but warmer and nicer. And then for the forecast today, sunny at first, chance of a thunderstorm later. Highs in the mid 70s, possibly getting up to 80 at a place here or there along the Outer Banks. Okay, let's get into climate. Looking at the global anomalies map provided by Karsten Hastein. Check him out. He is using climatology reference period and the global forecast system model. The global forecast system model is a publicly available model. What Karsten has done is provided the color enhancements to show you where temperatures are warmer than normal and where temperatures are colder than normal, and then providing the anomaly data for the entire globe, for the Arctic, for the tropics, and for the Antarctic. And today we find that there is no major region that is cooler than normal, with the globe being about half a degree Celsius above the 1981 to 2010 average. Right now, the Arctic is experiencing a big influx of heat, mainly through the northern Canadian, Western Canadian and Eastern Alaskan regions, and through the Eastern Siberian region. These warm air invasions have pushed the Arctic up to about 6.5 degrees Celsius above normal, which is a pretty decent excursion, but nothing too crazy. I mean, crazy relative to what I've seen over recent years. Here in the US Southeast, we are experiencing much warmer than normal conditions. You can see that in that blob of red. That's expected to continue through today, tomorrow, into Monday, possibly a little bit into Tuesday, and then things are expected to cool off by midweek. For Europe and Asia, much warmer than normal conditions persist, and I've been worried about fire weather for Siberia and parts of Europe for this year. Since we've had this consistently warmer than normal condition, we'll just have to keep a weather eye to it. And then for Northwest Africa, similar anomalies, much warmer than normal conditions. That's a bit of a concern as well. For the Antarctic, central Antarctic warming up, we've got cooler than normal conditions at the edges. Southern Ocean is a mash of storms as usual. Australia still experiencing a big heat wave in its south central section. All right, getting down to the global forecast system model. I don't know, do I want to do storms? You know what? Let's do storms first. So let's do the convective analysis. And for today, we've got just a broad risk of thunderstorms ranging from the US Gulf Coast all the way up to the US Northeast. Nothing too major, although there are some slight risks for severe thunderstorms in certain zones, mainly just north of Florida and into South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, and Mississippi, and also just south of Lake Erie. And then as we get into tomorrow and the front sinks down toward the Gulf, we get this big conflict between the hot and the cold, and we have some greater risks of severe thunderstorms with a broad swath of potential for thunderstorms running from the Outer Banks down in through Texas. Now, looking at the global forecast system model forecast, I'm going to have to get into the model. Right now, we've got that storm firing off just south of the Great Lakes. We got snows in eastern Iowa, parts of Illinois, rains ranging from the Gulf Coast, and thunderstorms ranging from the Gulf Coast on northward through the Ohio River Valley. This front is expected to move to the east today, sweeping across the Appalachians as the storm system moves north and east into Canada across the Great Lakes. And then as we get into the day on Sunday, the front's going to drape down through the U.S. Southeast, maybe stall out a bit. Looks like it's stalling. Yep, stalling. So that's what's providing that chance for thunderstorms along that stalled frontal boundary as the low pressure system gets up into Canada on Sunday. And into Monday, it looks like the stalled frontal boundary fires off with some thunderstorms, then heads off to the east off the Outer Banks. We're likely to get some stormy weather into late Monday, and then the storms move out. There it looked like there might have been some potential for a nor'easter, but that's fading out in these models. So mainly what we're getting is a stalled frontal boundary Monday through Tuesday. Then into Wednesday, we get the potential for a coastal low, but that coastal low doesn't look too strong. And then that one moves offshore as we get into Thursday. Colder conditions on Thursday. I'm not sure exactly how cold, but likely in the 50s. And we got another storm gathering out here over the west, over the Rockies, which is projected to head east and scoop up that Gulf moisture and turn into a big old storm by Friday. All right, now let's get into the wave model data. All right, let's get down to feet and to now. Make sure we are at now. When will then be now? Okay. We got a big old storm off of Newfoundland that's pumping up some waves for the shipping lanes. Got some decent waves out here off of Ireland in the 9 foot range and off of France in the 10 foot range, off of Portugal in the 8 foot range. Out here off the Outer Banks, wave heights are in the range of about, let's see, so about 4.3 foot wave heights. This is a swell just offshore. So it looks like ranging between 3.5 and 5 feet just offshore today. These wave heights will probably continue in this range throughout the day, maybe dropping down a little bit. And then as we get into the day on Sunday, wave heights in the near offshore environment in the range of 2.5 to nearly 4 feet. And swell orientation coming from the south and southeast shouldn't be too bad as far as waves go tomorrow, but still small, with waves in the coastal environment likely getting in the range of 1 to 3 feet. By Monday, waves getting smaller again with a swell orienting more from the east in the range of 2 to maybe some 2.5 foot waves. Could be a pretty small day on Monday, but with that orientation, we might have some better breaks at the beaches. So we'll just have to see. And then getting into Tuesday, we've got the swell picking up a bit from the east with the swell height ranging from 3 to 5 feet. And then into Wednesday, last day in the model, we still have that eastward orientation with a swell ranging from 3.5 to nearly 6 feet in the near offshore environment. So looking like the waves building steadily through early to midweek next week. All right, so thank you for joining me for this session of the OBX Wave Report. And I know we started out with Boondoggles, and in this case, looks like Toyota might be involved in a hydrogen boondoggle. I don't know. I could be wrong. Maybe Toyota is actually just sitting on a breakthrough, but in all likelihood, it's a boondoggle, especially when you consider the fact that they are continuing to double down on producing fossil fuel-based vehicles and not providing a clear path forward for electric vehicles, which does have a clear path as opposed to hydrogen, and is calling electric vehicle supporters EV extremists. So thank you for joining me once again, and I'd just like to ask you guys to do everything you can to help support clean energy being, at this point, wind, water, solar, and electric vehicles and their rapid deployment to address the climate crisis and save our coastlines from the impacts of climate